Back in April, I put up a video basically saying that it's been discovered through medical examination that I legally cannot drive. My peripheral vision is too narrow. And I was talking about how I would get around, and one of those examples would be public transportation, i.e. paratransit, or something thereof. Now, CoPete77 had brought up an interesting question, which was essentially was asking about the Google driverless cars. And I am excited and skeptical and worried all at the same time. I'm excited because this brings a level of independence to people with disabilities who would not be able to drive. That's number one. Number two, I'm skeptical as to how well this is going to work. Now, I've seen, if you Google on YouTube for Google driverless cars, oh shoot, which show? It was either something on PBS or from the BBC. It did a sort of a 10-minute spot on the Google driverless car, and that's what actually, in a way, won me over. Because from what they've seen, what they said in the show was, and this is where I'm skeptical, they say that this thing is actually a better driver than people. That's where I'm skeptical. And of course, you know, all accidents, regardless of whether or not you're at fault, at least when it comes to collisions, if you're in a collision with with an object that doesn't move, there, inanimate object, I said it. Anyway, there are obviously many factors to consider in an accident, but there was always the possibility for human error. That's essentially what I was getting at. And, you know, the Google driverless car eliminates the need for human error. Let's take a look at this diagram as far as blaming for an accident, but let's take a look at this diagram. So we've got a video camera here mounted near the rearview mirror, and this camera detects light and any moving objects. So here we see right here, if you can see where my arrow is. For those of you who cannot see, it is mounted literally on the back of the rearview mirror. On the top, this thing called a LiDAR or LiDAR, I'm going to say LiDAR, L-I-D-A-R. It is a rotating sensor on the roof that scans the area in a radius of 60 meters for creation of a dynamic three-dimensional map of the environment. Now this thing spins really, really fast, several dozen, maybe hundreds of times per second, I don't know. It moves so fast that I can't even tell how quick it's moving. And that is mounted on the roof of the car. Think of, for those of you who cannot see but may have had sight in the past, you remember those taxi cab advertising boxes on the roof? It's about that height, and what you're looking at is, I guess what I could describe as a steel beam that's mounted on the roof of the car, and on top of the steel beam in the very center looks like a siren light, but it's really not. It rotates in the same way, though, that a siren light would. So that's the top. Alright, so we have a position estimator which is a sensor mounted on the left rear wheel. Now obviously you can't see that here in the diagram. Actually, yes you can, it's over here. It's mounted in the left rear wheel, or on the wheel, I'm sorry. And it measures lateral movements and determines the car's position on the map. I apologize, I'm trying to keep myself from breaking up, but this is all just very, you know, this is just amazing. And for those of you who cannot see, the wheel is essentially a 5-spoke, and what we have here is something that looks like an old-fashioned mercury thermometer. I guess that's the easiest way to describe it. And that's connected to a wire. Actually, I don't know if that's a wire or if that's a cutout. Good question. I don't know. But if it is a wire, it's going all the way up to just below the door window. Just below the rear window, just behind the door. So that's the rear wheel. And then if we take a look here, we've got distance sensors. Alright? And these are 4 radars, 3 in the front bumper and 1 on the rear. And they measure distance to various obstacles to allow the system to reduce the speed of the car. Now, you're looking at one that's mounted directly in front of the front wheel on the side, And then in the front, you've got it mounted right where the license plate would traditionally be. In fact, they've had to move the license plate bracket over to the left corner, right under the left headlight. And then the other front radar on the left is positioned where the one on the right would be, which again, directly in front of the front wheel on the side. Now, I would really like to see how these work out. Certainly there are a lot of questions. Safety. One of the questions I have is insurance. I mean, obviously when you get into an accident, if you're the one at fault, your rates will go up. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. Understand that I cannot drive, so I do not keep up with auto insurance. But as I understand it, I apologize. As I understand it, both, your rates would go up regardless. But the question is, if you are not at fault for the accident, what happens? That's the one thing. We're going to have to create a whole new, I think we're going to have to adjust some of our traffic laws to come to compensate for these driverless vehicles. But my personal take on it is I am skeptical. I'd like to see how well this works. But if this turns out to be a proven technology, this can be a major step forward. Now, a lot of people are... there was also talk in Maryland at the National Federation of the Blind headquarters for the Blind Driver Challenge. Now, I've actually had some mixed feelings on this. I remember a friend of mine is skeptical about that. Now, what that is it's a collection of it's essentially some equipment that you wear, kind of like a headset and whatnot. And to put it simply, it's essentially a screen reader for cars. Now, I've not seen that. I've not tried it myself, much as I haven't tried the driverless car. So I'm going to wait to withhold final judgment on all of this. But, you have the option for driverless cars, and if the blind driving technology does move forward, that's certainly another option. What I'm getting at here is with these driverless cars, a lot of people who are currently used to driving are like, oh my gosh, what the heck, I have to give up my control. But if you're looking at it from the other side of the sidewalk, from the other side of the street, and you have an exceptionality that makes it impossible for you to drive for one reason or another. I remember a friend of mine and also an ex of mine, both of them had cerebral palsy to the point where they could not drive because they didn't have the motor control. And for them, something like this is a real step forward. I mean, rather than having to rely on buses, you could just get in your car and go. And from what I understand from the interface, you're going to be able to get dropped off, say, at the shopping mall, and your car will go park itself. I mean, wow, So again, search YouTube for the video. I think you should type in Google driverless cars and just see what comes up. But I saw this, again, like I said, I saw this documentary, and they actually showed how well it worked. I mean, wow. One of these days, I certainly hope to at least try it for myself. What would be nice is if, as an iPhone user, if I can go in and actually give the car my destination and have it cool itself off 10 minutes prior to leaving, and then once I'm in, it senses that I'm in and we're off, What do you guys think? I just think that this is going to be a real step forward if it works. Now, again, I'm skeptical, and I want to see, I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but, well, you know what I've said. What do you guys think? Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.